Hi, my name is Rick Wilson, Studio Bug, and we're just gonna talk a little while. I'm gonna go over a little bit of my history, who I am and how I grew up and why I feel like about a lot of things that I do, and give you a little history through the timeline of my life, how I grew up, what it was to be like a little boy growing up in Selma, Alabama. Okay, I don't have a lot of negative memories. I know that Selma's been blown up very negatively. We've had a lot of people come in from all over, actually the world, that has come in and made Selma sound like a big Chicago or something of that nature. I don't know, just very, very negative. But Selma as a whole has a lot of good people in it. A lot of people that love Selma. I'm very proud to say that I was from Selma, or am from Selma. I actually live about 15 miles north of Selma now, in the woods. If you find my house, you're lost or hunting, and that's the way I prefer it. But I can remember being in the Coast Guard, and on my ship that I was stationed on, it was Coast Guard cutter Sundew 404. It was a buoy tender, and we changed out big buoys with blinking lights on them over to what we call cans, so the ice wouldn't tear them up in the winter. And also we just performed a lot of different things. But anyway, back then they had had lighthouses. We would give them furniture, give them fuel, and that kind of thing. But anyway, I remember when I first got there, I remember them asking me where I was from. And I told them, well, I'm from Selma, Alabama. Oh, you case. It was like taboo to say. Now, I was in Michigan. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, you from Selma, Alabama, you know, it's that and other. And I said, well, it's a great little town. I don't understand what you're talking about. Well, we've got a lot of southern black folks on this boat. They don't have any problem with Selma, Alabama. I mean, the idea of the rest of the world about Selma is just inaccurate. I have an extraordinary amount of black friends. In fact, I still work with black folks. I love black folks. It's not. As a matter of fact, one of the things I was going to cover here is I went to Edgewood, and I remember in the 3rd grade, the first little black kid. We were what do you call it when you're separated? We were not integrated yet. And I remember the first year that, and I was in the 3rd grade, that a black kid walked up the sidewalk and was registered at Edgewood, and it just so happens that the first kid came into our class, and like I said, in my 3rd grade class. And I know all the parents and everything some of them were, up in arms about this kind of stuff. But actually, we as 3rd graders found out that this kid was not a whole lot different than we were. He was, in fact, we didn't know. We had been separated for so long that we really didn't know anything about black folks, and they apparently didn't know a whole lot about us. So we were actually kind of excited about this because we kind of really wanted to know what it was like to know somebody black, because we didn't. We knew our only experience with black folks is when some of our neighbors, as long as I lived, we never had any kind of what do you call the person to come over and clean the house and that kind of thing. Maids. We never had that. I wasn't ever fortunate enough or had enough money. We didn't ever have that. But now I knew some friends of mine that did, and they were, these black folks were as sweet as they could be. I mean, they were always good to us as kids. We loved them to death. I remember Jenny was one of them. Nettie was another one we knew. And the list goes on and on. And we loved every one of them. And so from that, we kind of figured this kid coming into our third grade class could not be that bad. So anyway, that's just one of the things that I remember as a kid growing up. And if I know that some of my friends are going to remember this too, because there was at least 20 of us in that class, and I think his name was what was his name? Started with a B, I think. I can't remember. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, some of the things that I remember, and I guess it was 60s, early 60s, riding my bike down there and watching the parades. We watched parades when it was around election time, and I remember going into Hotel Albert and going up those red stairs. Man, they had these big steps right in the center. It was a big grand entrance. Going upstairs and getting these, they looked like little stars, and it was to vote for Jim Clark for sheriff. I think that's right. But I had these things, I had them stuck all over me, and that's just one of the things I remember. I remember going out to the parade and walking around like that. And I remember Pat Nixon was in the parade, or was in one of them. I can't remember if it's the same parade or not. They came by. I remember Wallace, George Wallace coming by in the parade. I remember, I remember the Parish High Band of Blue, the Hudson High. I remember Keith. I remember all these different bands, and of course Santa Claus going by and the fire truck and that kind of stuff. But all those were fond memories. But I really, wasn't long after that. My brother was working at the Wilby Theater, and it had been there since either the 20s or early 30s, and it was during the Depression. It was like a playhouse, what do you call them, where you go and watch plays and that kind of thing, the theater. So but it had since been turned into, in the 60s and 70s, I guess, maybe even earlier than that, into a theater, so that you could go watch movies. I remember watching Hard as a Lonely Hunter there, which was also filmed in Selma. I remember Butterflies Are Free was filmed there. I remember Blue Skies, Jessica Lange, I remember it was filmed there. Selma Law, Selma, I was actually in that. I played a photographer. Everybody else had to cut their mustaches and beard off, but they let me wear my mustache. I was in my I guess I was in my 20s or 30s back then. Anyway, so Selma's got a lot of positive things as well. I remember I remember swimming at a place called Fire Acres. We always call it Fire Acres, but it was actually F-I, Fire Acres. I didn't know that, but I remember, and you can remember too if you're from Selma, how cold that water was. Good Lord, I remember the water was cold. I remember the blaring music, the Beach Boys, and all those older tunes, man. I remember that. I remember sitting in the car with my granny, and I think it was on Union Street. Correct me if I'm wrong. By the way, all these things, if I'm saying them wrong, you can correct me down in the comment section down there. But it was at Twillie's TV Repair, and I think it was on Union Street, right there at the corner of Union and Dallas. It was in 1968. It was when it was at the time that John F. Kennedy had gotten shot, Robert Kennedy had gotten shot, and Martin Luther King had gotten shot. A bad time in history for the United States. And I remember sitting there at the corner of Dallas and Union Street, I think it is, that was right that Twillie's was on, watching the march, the Civil Rights March come by. And I remember they had a black casket that they were holding above their heads in reverence of Martin Luther King and Robert and John. I remember that really clearly. And I don't know how old I was. I was really young in '65. I was born in '56. So I guess I was, what was it, around 8 or 9, something like that. That was a scary time. It was a very confusing time, because at that young, you really don't know all that's going on. You remember the good things, but you also remember the bad things too. But I remember doing that. I remember watching, not long after that, the Wilby that my brother worked at. I think I mentioned he was there when it caught on fire. It caught on fire, and they let everybody go outside, and they told everybody they'd get the fire under control, and just as soon as they did, everybody could come back in. Well, little they know that it just gutted it, burned it to the ground. I remember also watching it burn and putting all those people out of work, and everybody said it was a big conspiracy, because this was after the Hotel Albert had burned, and they wanted to build a big complex downtown, and they're saying that, somebody could have burned it on purpose. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, but I know it put my brother out of work. And I remember I had a lot of fond memories of the Wilby, because I remember sitting there, as many as you did, and I can't remember, I think his name was Randy. He was he went to Selma High School, and he always had this suit on. He'd come around with a flashlight and put it in your eyes. Hey, you gotta be quiet. Well, you're not gonna quiet up at night until a 10-year-old. It just ain't gonna happen. But but anyway, that was some of my fond memories of that. How many times did you go to the the Walton Theater, and watch the film break? See, the Walton was a step down from the Wilby. It was also cheaper, if I'm not mistaken, and they played more second or B and C class movies at the Wilby. They played better movies, but the Walton was a whole lot smaller, but it didn't really matter. I mean, we went to it anyway, but I just remember the film breaking so many times. And I remember going to the Wilby when I was really young. Our parents would put us out there with some cans of food, and we would give them the cans of food for the needy, and we could watch cartoons and the Three Stooges all day. So that was on a Saturday. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but I certainly did. This was a little later. I remember watching the Rogues. You remember the Ram Shack? We used to listen. I was too young to go to the Ram Shack, but my sister wasn't. She was 8 or 9 years older than me, but they could go to a dance at the Ram Shack, which was at Memorial Stadium. And I remember the Rogues playing and listening to them outside. They were a really good group, but anyway, I remember that. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember that as well. I remember walking to Edgewood in the snow, no shoes, and barely had coats on. And it sounds like that was a terrible thing, but my parents, we kept colds all the time, my brother, my sister, and me, and the doctor finally said, "Are you making him wear shoes?" Well, of course we are. It's cold outside. He said, "Don't make them wear shoes if they don't want to wear shoes." Okay, so we never got sick anymore. I guess I've never understood that, but You can look at the pictures from Edgewood School in our class pictures, and half of them don't have shoes on. Back then, if you had shoes, if you did wear them to school, you didn't have to wear them, so we'd always, I can't tell you how many pairs of shoes I lost because I took them off so much. My parents used to get so mad about it because shoes were expensive then too. But I just had another flash memory. How many of you ever got to go to school in blue jeans that didn't have lines around the cuffs? You know what I mean by that? Yeah, most of you do, because you had to wear hand-me-downs. And so you got to wear blue jeans that were handed down from your older brother, and they were so long that you had to fold them up, and they stayed folded up through the washing. And so when you got to put them on, by the time that you were old enough to wear them without them being cuffed up, they had lines where the cuffs were because you wore them blue jeans so long. I don't know if you remember that or not, but Lord, I do. I remember listening to Hudson High School. I grew up on Bienville Street, and we used to go down to the Valley Creek, and we'd follow the creek up, and we'd get behind Hudson High School and listen to the band play. Man, you could hear them from my house. It's the reason why that we wanted to actually, hit the creek and go over there and listen to them, because they were loud. They were extremely loud and extremely good. And at the same time, the football players are back there practicing and getting ready to play for that following Saturday or Friday night or whatever it was. But anyway, that's another thing that I remember doing, and going down and trying to find relics from the Civil War. We could find shots, and people found old guns and that kind of stuff down there, because back then they hadn't looked at it, hadn't been taken out of the creek that much. But we found like foxholes and all the stuff that it was explained to us that all that stuff was from the Civil War. I remember when I remember walking to school in Edgewood and carrying, and I wish I had it, I don't have it with me. I may put it in a picture behind me if I can, but it was a Kentucky long rifle that was carried all the way through the Civil War that my dad had bought from somebody. But I carried it for about 4 or 5 blocks all the way to school with a bayonet on it and everything, for show and tell. That was pretty neat. How many kids do you think you would see today carrying that down the road? I don't think it would be many. Okay, this thing has gotten to be pretty long, so I'm going to stop right here, and then I'm going to go to a second one of these, the second part of this, if you want to watch it. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm going to do it anyway. But anyway, this is Rick Wilson, Studio Bug from Selma, Alabama, and I've enjoyed talking to you and bringing back these memories. I'll talk to you later. Love you guys. Hey, be sweet. I know where you live. Like my mom used to say. All right, oops, don't say it.